Hey guys, so I was just chronoing my airsoft gun. You might have seen these before. This is the MK18 Mod 0. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I am obsessed with the MK18. And in every way, this is the predecessor to that firearm. Now, there is a lot of interesting things that come to the history of the MK18 Mod 0. We're not going to delve so much into that. What we're going to talk about is the shootability. A lot of interesting design specs that led to it being set up the way it was, gassed the way it was. The shootability is really interesting on these particular rifles. So, as we always say, talk is very cheap, ammunition is expensive, so we're going to get into it. But of course, before we do that, what do we have to do, Micah?
Talk about our sponsor.
Of course. So we have to thank the Sonoran Desert Institute. If you're looking to get your start in gunsmithing, they are the people to go to, and they fund us to do crazy stuff. Now, again, I guess today's not too crazy, so a big thank you to the Sonoran Desert Institute. And who else, Micah?
Primary Arms. Get yourself a peanut butter PLXC.
That's a fact, and there's a special patch coming out for Skittles. Ooh. From what I hear. Yeah, they got pretty angry at us about that. So next up, we have Mantis. If you want to turn your weapon into a dry fire machine, Mantis is the way to go. Of course, we recommend dry fire. Isn't that right, Mike? And of course, AAC ammunition. We're firing all 77 grain today. So with all that being said, let's get into it. Now, in every single way, when it comes to the MK18 Mod 0, we have to thank the U.S. Navy. So, Crane, they do a lot of work when it comes to special operations weapons, and the MK18 Mod 0 was conceived by them. Now, why you saw the MK18 Mod 0 come about was, quite frankly, there are a lot of M4s, or a lot of M4A1s, and it was very easy, if they wanted to make a weapon that was suitable for CQB, to simply cut down the M4 as short as they possibly could. But we can talk about this all we want, or we can actually talk about what's important on Grand Thumb, which is the shootability. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start, and I'm gonna challenge Micah. Mike has actually only shot this like once, so good luck, dude. And we're gonna be doing a series of shooting drills to see, one, who is the best shooter, which is important, right, Micah?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say, which is me.
Yeah, because I'm the main character. But more importantly, what we wanna show is how well balanced the weapon is. We're gonna start off with our basic drill, which is going to be the bill drill. So that is going to be 6 rounds at 7 yards, and typically we wanna do it in under 2 seconds. So we'll go ahead and we'll start there.
Wow, that was really good. That was really good.
What time?
1:47 and pretty much.
Good, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, you should be.
The follow-ups on the MK18 Mod 0 are easy.
Well, I don't know if I can beat that, but we're gonna try.
Shooter, are you ready?
Yep.
Stand by.
Nah.
161.
What was yours?
147. That's good. That's really good. Excellent. As you can see, 2 pretty good shooters. Not too bad. Now we'll do a bad shooter.
Oh!
Got him.
Hey, where's the line?
Do you understand the course fire? Stand by. 157. 130. The penalty for Charlie? Point 10? Okay,
yeah.
So it's 167. So first, second, third. Nice. Let's keep going. Next up, we're going to be clearing the plate rack.
All right. Whoever loses this drill has to put pronouns in their bio. All right, here we go.
No, no, that's way too intense.
No.
Oh, yeah, Blake said so.
My pronouns are re and tard.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Shoot ready.
Yeah.
Stand by. Woo! All right, Mike did not want pronouns in his bio, so he had a 2-3-0.
That is ridiculously slow.
If not 0.
I had no problem.
I smacked the bottom.
No, you were hitting the steel below the target.
Yeah, why? I was right on.
Well, height over board.
No, that doesn't count.
Height over board. Bitch. I know who's putting pronouns in their bio. Stand by. It's 0.
No.
Sucks to suck, dude.
Pronouns, he.
Xi Jinping.
Hey,
Him.
I'll never be. What's that one mean? With the Chihuahua.
There it is. Micah, he, him.
The Mark 18 Mod 0, we have done enough shooting, but before we talk about it, what is the Mark 18 Mod 0? It is basically an M4 variant. Now in this case, it is a 10.3 barrel. At the beginning it was a 10.5. We have a direct impingement gas system. It feeds from a standard Stanag magazine or Magpul magazines from nowadays. And in many ways, it mirrors a lot of the upgrades that occurred with the M4 and the M4A1. So who was it developed by? Well, there's a lot of people that had their hand in it, but a lot of the development was done by a entity called Naval Special Warfare Center Crane, or affectionately referred to as Crane. Basically people that make really cool weapons for all special operations, but primarily associated with the Navy SEALs and Naval Special Operations. They needed a firearm that could be good in CQB. When you have rooms, when you are maneuvering in a city, you don't need a lot of the ballistics that the M4 or that a longer weapon will give you. So they need to get as short as possible to be able to maneuver. Because as good as the MP5 is, I love the MP5, it is a 9mm gun. So prior to the Mark 18 and many of the other short M4 variants, the MP5 was used very heavily. The Mark 18 Mod 0 offers a lot more firepower, being that it's a 5.56 by 4.5 compared to 9 by 19. A rifle round is just going to be more ballistically energetic when it hits a human being. So enter the Mark 18 Mod 0. Now it didn't serve nearly as long as the Mark 18 Mod 1 did, and by nearly as long I mean the Mark 18 Mod 0 is still in service. However, the Mod 1 has by and far replaced it in most active combat roles. The Mark 18 Mod 0 is still used, and we'll talk about that. So when this was first developed by Crane, the thing you have to understand is it was originally developed with the M4 in mind. If you know anything about the Army, there are a lot of weapons, or the Navy, or the Air Force, or whoever. They had a lot of M4s, and they simply modified existing M4s by cutting down the barrels to about as short as they could be, which would be to the front sight post, which is what we have right here, to make the shortest weapon possible. Now later on, once Colt kind of got a hold of the project, they specially made these, but originally they were cut down, they were made piecemeal. Eventually these came from the factory designed as they are. There's a lot of questions about why a weapon would be shortened down this much. And the best way to explain it is, an M4 is great, but it's still loud. So a lot of people will say, well, why would you get a Mark 18? You're taking the M4 and it's too long, so then you're shortening it, but then it's too loud, so then you add a suppressor and it's just as long as an M4, so what's the point? And the best way I could describe it is, the Mark 18 Mod 0 with the Knight's NT4 suppressor. Micah, could we shoot this and you could still talk to me?
Yeah, it's not too bad.
So you can still shoot, move, and communicate with the Mark 18 Mod 0 with a suppressor on there, which is about the length of the M4. Compared to the M4, if me and Micah were to shoot that without Ear Pro, it would be very impossible to be able to communicate, especially indoors. So there's a lot going for the Mark 18 Mod 0. Now that's enough for history. If you really want to go deeper into the history of the Mark 18 Mod 0, Small Arms Review, tons of different guys have great books, great videos on this resource. We are going to approach it from the way we always approach it, which is the shooter side. So the first thing I want to talk about is going to be the Knight's Armament NT4. This is a suppressor that was often used with the Mark 18 Mod 0.
Can I just say, that's the suppressor that everyone thinks of when someone says suppressor.
When I think of a suppressor, I think of the NT4, from whether it be from video games or it just looks cool. And there's actually a purpose to that. The reason it has this kind of grating on the outside is it helps for the radiation of heat off the suppressor. If you don't know, suppressors get ridiculously hot, anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees per round. That's ridiculous. So by adding more surface area, you allow the suppressor to cool off faster because you are constantly fighting the heat. These will quickly burn through pants and give you third-degree burns. Mike, I'm sure it's happened to you at some point.
Oh yeah, gloves for sure.
Make sure you comment if you've ever burned yourself with a suppressor. That would be me. I'll comment. So when it comes to the NT4 or any type of combat suppressor, what I'm looking for is signature reduction, primarily flash, and sound is a secondary because 5.56 is a supersonic round. It's going to be breaking the sound barrier. It's going to be loud when it does that. We want to at least max that sound a little bit, but much more important than the actual decibel level, what matters more to me is tone. The NT4 sounds really good. It's a very deep tone, a little bit pingy, and it's very pleasant on the ears as far as suppressors go. And more importantly, the NT4 does a great job of controlling the flash coming out of the very short barrel, because on a very short barrel like the 10.3 that we have here, there's a lot of unburnt gunpowder that is going to be ignited as it exits that barrel, and that needs to be contained.
Do you have ammo?
What?
Do you have ammo?
Oh yeah, of course. I love it, dude. Back pressure is not too bad. It should be noted when it comes to these firearms, and especially the older suppressors, that the back pressure is going to be bigger. So what I mean by back pressure is those baffles in this suppressor are going to be trapping that gas. That gas is going to be flowing back. This is a DI system. You're going to have more of that gas flowing back, more of that gas getting in your face. It's not terrible. These NT4s do a pretty good job. Obviously, newer suppressors like the Huxworks cans and newer flow-through Surefire cans are going to do great in comparison. But what really matters to me for a suppressor is how long does it last? The NT4 is a freaking tank. These things will go a ridiculous number of rounds, which you can't say for every suppressor out there. So it is a very robust can. It is a very good can for what it was designed for. And it's a little bit heavy compared to newer cans, but no matter what, it still has a very special place in my heart because it looks cool as fuck.
Now, this video is brought to you by the United States Concealed Carry Association, otherwise known as the USCCA. What is the USCCA? Well, this is a really good question. The USCCA for members provides many benefits such as education, training, and of course SDLI, which is self-defense liability insurance. Let's talk about all of them. First off, education, extremely important. Some states have very complex self-defense laws. Being able to learn those in a nice, convenient location is going to, of course, be awesome. And then, of course, we have training. You should be training, but they have great bite-sized little bits to train you. Anything from basic firearm handling all the way up to drills with the AR-15. Be rest assured they have good stuff when it comes to that. Despite doing the right thing, despite following the law and defending your life, you might still get criminally charged. Self-defense liability insurance is awesome, and that is, again, one of those member benefits that you do get for being a part of the USCCA. Now, here's the best part about all of this. You receive all of these great benefits, from training to education to the SDLI, and it's a bulletproof guarantee. Here's what we mean by that. That means if you're not satisfied after 365 days, that is a full year, get that money back. So go and check them out. Big call to action, USCCA. Go and click them, uscca.com/Grand Thumb. Go and check it out.
Moving down to the muzzle device for the NT4, there are a couple different muzzle devices. We have the newer triple tap on there, but the NT4 muzzle device looks very much so like a A2 birdcage. It does have an indexing slot to make sure everything's lined up. And the NT4s, when you first put them on when they're brand new, will have a little bit of side-to-side play. That will go away as you build up carbon inside the mounting mechanism, and you'll eliminate a lot of that play. So don't worry too much if you have an NT4 and it does that at first. Moving back down to the barrel. A lot of different barrels have been used. The thing you have to understand about the MK18 Mod 0 is there were a lot of iterations. A lot of different companies made them. So you have anything from the SOCOM profile barrels when they were cut down from the M4 all the way to, lightweight barrels that came straight out of Colt. In the case of this one, this is a cut down SOCOM barrel. It is at the 10.3. Technically, it would have been at the 10.5. Originally, when the M4s are cut down, they're cut down to 10.5, and then the gas ports are opened up. The M4 gas port, you have a longer barrel, therefore you have more dwell time. So once the bullet passes where the gas port is, that gas is going to be pressurized behind that slug. It's going to be longer on a 14.5 because there's more of that time to be pressurized. That's your dwell time. Obviously, when you shorten that, it's going to have less dwell time. Therefore, you need to open up the gas port to ensure that we have enough gas going into the system in order to cycle it. On the MK18 Mod 0, that is a .070. That's held mostly true. I think on some of the newer models, we have closer to a .074, but it definitely depends on suppressor as well. M4s are .06 too. Right here, we're at a smidge under 300. This is a 300-meter rifle. I have heard from talking to various SEALs of guys making 600-meter shots, but nothing's guaranteed. It's definitely ammo dependent when it comes to the short barrel.
Nothing's free in Waterworld.
That's a fact.
Turn on that dot intensity.
You know what? Twice in a row, I feel good about that. I'm just like a little bit off and high. It's always a struggle. with a red dot to shoot far without anything that can correct you because you're kind of just aiming in space. You gotta measure the dots and hit it, but very doable with the Mark 18 Mod 0, so always cool to see that it is capable to make those longer shots. Now, on these shorter barrels, you're gonna have less barrel life, less rifling. As that rifling erodes away, you're of course gonna have a decrease in accuracy. It's gonna happen. Obviously, a longer barrel is gonna do better. However, this is a purpose-built weapon. A lot of people say with these short ballistics that you can't hit anything or kill anything. Newer rounds make that not so much a big deal. We're shooting primarily 77 grain OTM. That's pretty close to a Mark 262, which was a great combat round from Black Hills. And those open up at pretty much any range. So I have talked to SEALs who have killed people at close to 500 with these guys right here. They're not designed for it. They will do it. It is accurate enough to make those long shots, but most people would consider the Mark 18 Mod 0 about a 300 meter gun. Now, moving back from the suppressor, you can see that we still do have the front sight block. We still do have the bayonet mount, which makes a lot of people excited. However, there's not enough barrel to mount the bayonet, so that is vestigial. It's no longer used. You know that word, right?
Vestigial?
Yeah,
Why would I know that word?
because you're a geographer.
I'm not good at biology at all.
Passing back to there, we do have a wrist rail. There's a lot that's going on here. So the wrist rails mount into the standard mount that you have for the M4. It is a two-piece drop-in design. These are very common on M4s and were standard on the Mark 18 Mod 0s. So we have a couple different setups that we can talk about today, but what we have here is, I would argue, the best setup. So on the bottom, if you're not familiar, we do have a Surefire M900 Alpha. This would, if you had this on your rifle back in the day, this would have gotten you immediately laid. That is actually a fact. If you saw these were in the early Magpul DVDs and they were super cool. A couple things to note about it. One, it's an incandescent bulb, so it's not super bright. Actually, it's good for the time. Can you even see that?
Hardly. And I like how it doesn't just snap on. It kind of like warms up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it builds the brightness.
There is LED lights at the back, so there's a button at the back if you need to do a little bit of navigation or something like that. There's a lot that comes to the 900A. You'll notice that the grip is quite big, especially when you compare it to grips nowadays, which are very short. Well, that's due to the fact that back in the day, they were taught to hold that thing like a broom handle. Obviously nowadays, ever since the Magpul DVDs, thank you Chris Costa and Travis Haley, now we choke up on the gun. But these lights were big and awesome back in the day, and they still rock. A lot of military ones, you see either the 900 Alphas or you see the older Surefire lights just on the side. Up here on the top, we do have a PEC 2. This is a clone. We're doing a couple testings on these Somo gears, but on the PEC 2 itself, they're very powerful, they're very robust, they're just giant, but they work well. Have you ever used a PEC 2 before?
No.
Really? They're
PEC 2?
wonderful.
No.
They have a great. Their IR flood is actually really good. They're quite powerful, and they're usually pretty cheap online. Not stolen from the government, of course. We would never steal from the government.
Well, why would we steal from the government? They don't steal from us, ever.
Yeah, I figured to just kind of get my taxes back.
Yeah.
Moving back to the rifle itself, this is pretty clone correct. We have the square marking on our Colt forged upper. There were a lot of different forging marks when it came to the Mark 18 Mod 0. This one works. And then, of course, we do have the M4A1 U.S. government property marked lower. This is pretty close. Obviously, this is not a auto lower or anything like that. But this is pretty close in terms of what you'd see. On many Mark 18s, when they first came out with the Navy, you saw a lot of M16A1 lowers that were used because they had a huge surplus of those on the market. By market, I mean in their inventories. And so those were used quite often, but later on as these were built out, you saw a lot of those. We have to talk about, of course, choosing the best sight. A lot of sights were used on the Mark 18, typically the M68 Reflex, but right here we have a Colt-marked Seymour. You don't see the Seymour that much anymore. Seymour to see more. Get it, Micah? Because you see more.
Yeah, like the book. Under the Bleachers by Seymour Butts.
Damn it. So the Seymours were primarily used on competition pistols nowadays, but back in the day, it was a pretty cool optic, and you can see it's an open emitter, just shining onto glass, but because of the construction of the optic itself, the glass is really, really clear, and there's not a whole lot obstructing it or anything like that. So when you look through it, Michael will pop up a video right here of what that looks like. It's a very clear sight picture. The dot is very clear, very crisp, very bright. So in some ways, it's actually a pretty good optic. It is pretty fragile compared to modern optics nowadays, so maybe not the best, but you know what? Does it look cool?
Oh, it's a vibe.
It's a vibe. And what's really cool about it is that the A2 sight is built into the rear right there. So you do have a full A2 rear sight with the changeable apertures from precision to CQB. So the apertures themselves actually fit in the lower 1/3. So it is technically a 1/3 optic. So it's, for kind of these older optics, it's at a really good height. I quite enjoy the Seymour optic, especially the Colt Mark ones. They are, as Micah would say, a vibe. Moving over to the lower itself, it is standard M4 controls. You have your bolt release, you have your magazine release. On these newer Colts, you do have ambi. That was typically not the case with the older Mark 18s, and of course you have the A2 grip. Obviously, this stuff has all changed. You do still see the Mark 18s Mod Zeros used in the Navy on search teams or just among some of the other personnel because they built a lot of them. And so you see a lot of different configurations nowadays. Quick, ghosting of the trigger right here. We do have a Geisley in here. Geisley super select fires are often used in special operations weapons, so let's go ahead and try that trigger right there. A little bit of play into it. Let off on these Geisleys is so ridiculous. Let's try that one more time. 2-pound let off, 4-pound total pull. Geisley triggers are awesome. One thing we have to talk about is recoil. What makes the Mark 18 so good is how well it balances. With the suppressor out front to weigh it down and to help reduce a lot of the kickback of the weapon itself. With the correct buffer, it can run really well. A lot of different buffers are used in Mark 18 Mod Zeros. In today's video, we do have a Volter on there, basically a rifle length gas system with a rifle length buffer, allowing for a longer cycle time. It's going to slow down the auto rate, as well as helping with parts longevity. You have to understand that on these short guns, they're really hard on bolts. You're probably going to see 3 to 5K before a bolt breaks. Me and Mike have both broken tons of bolts at around that mark, especially on these really short guys that are 10.3. There is no free lunch, and getting a 5.56 rifle this short, you're going to run into parts wear issues. It's not a bad idea to carry an extra BCG or an extra bolt with you because parts breakage is definitely a concern. To show you overall recoil, I'm just going to go ahead and fire a few right here. Very, very controllable gun. Feels great to shoot. The Mark 18 is just a great firearm. Now, if you're a true Giga Chad, a lot of guys would have ACOGs on here. Not the best optic for it, but damn did it look cool. Finally at the back here, this is a B5. It is a clone of the earlier SOP Mod stock. The early SOP Mod stocks actually had a lot of problems, and these latches would come undone all the time, so you saw a lot of guys putting rubber bands on here to hold them in place in case you were wondering why those were there. The SOP Mod stock also includes compartments for batteries. These Seymours, the PEC 2s, the Surefire 900s, even any of the older Surefire lights, they chewed through batteries. So 100% necessary to have them on you, if not having them on your stock, which also could help with weight, help keep the rifle kind of more balanced if that worked for you. So overall, when it comes to the Mark 18, it's very well balanced, it's very lightweight, the recoil is very minimal, and it's a killer weapon. It's great. As far as weapons that have served in combat, the Mark 18 is well proven. It's proven itself from Afghanistan to Iraq, been used from Navy SEALs to Green Berets, and is still used today. It is a great firearm. Now, there are of course much better alternatives nowadays with longer rails that are free floated, so you get a little bit more accuracy. The weapon cools off better, like the newer DDs from Daniel Defense or the newer URGIs from Geisley. But despite that, I do have a special place in my heart for the Mark 18 Mod Zero, because when I think of like a shorty M4, like this exact setup is what I think about. It is just a vibe, it looks cool, and looking cool matters. But here's the thing, when it comes to these guns, it doesn't matter if you don't get training. So get out there and get training, guys. I'd be terrified of someone running an older setup like this if they are training every day, because this is a very effective weapon. Guys, get out there, train, find your buddies, have a good time. As always, we love you guys, and we've got nothing else for you. Final thing for you guys, dad advice. The thing you have to realize is if you don't have kids right now, there's probably going to be a time when you will have kids. Your kids are going to look to you as an example. So start building the type of character that you want your kid to see. You are going to be that example. They're going to use you to model their lives after. Think about that when you are making choices in your life. Take care, guys.